Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to our episode of A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's a pleasure to have you back with us again. On this show, we're going to cover something in terms of how to change the world. How do we do that? Is it the political party we're in? Is it because we have to vote Democrat, Republican, Liberal, Independent? Well, or is it something simpler? Is it not that complicated? Is it really up to us and really the elected officials just follow what we say? Interesting concept, but we're going to have a show today with someone who has tremendous community involvement. He has his own business, and he has his own way of changing the world, of bringing calm that's really necessary when you've seen in the last 2 years of what we've all gone through. So, Buddha, if you can, I want to bring up the pictures of our guest today, Mr. Robert Mcdonald. And there you go, his foundation, his mom's foundation, Neselina McDonald. He's the founder of the Neselina McDonald Memorial Foundation, and he was born in London, England. In May of 1991, here in America, he started the McDonald Commercial and Residential Maintenance Corporation, presently known as Emmanuel Maintenance Corporation. As his business grew and expanded, Mr. McDonald employed young men in the community. This was the beginning of his contribution to community service concerning the youth of our city. In his off time, he began taking his son and friends of his son from Canarsie and Coney Island to local Hoop It Up tournaments. And they had such a great time that it inspired him to found the Neselina McDonald Memorial Foundation in honor of his mother, who was inspiring him and inspired him by all the help that she gave to others. I am my brother's keeper is Mr. McDonald's motto for the foundation. And with this in mind, the foundation has created a successful youth development program using the sport of basketball as a platform to address some of the pressing needs of the community. In 2002, Mr. McDonald was honored to receive the Congressional Award for Outstanding Mentorship throughout the community from Congressman Ed Towns. A few years later, the Neselina McDonald Memorial Foundation began facilitating a mentoring program to service youth in Brownsville, Brooklyn on a regular basis. Through weekly workshops and team building retreats, the foundation has seen over 200 youth participate in the program. Furthermore, the Neselina McDonald Memorial Foundation has grown tremendously over the past 20 years, with its first 3 teams coming locally from Coney Island, Queens, New York, Chester, Pennsylvania, but presently come from the entire East Coast of the United States, from Florida really up internationally to Canada. Over 600 youth participate annually in his Neselina McDonald basketball tournament and trips. The organization has also been used to open the doors for many participants to be recipients of scholarships. And many of his youth have gone on to play college basketball and some professionally for the NBA, ABA, and international leagues. Quite amazing. In more recent years, the Neselina McDonald Foundation developed a long-term plan that broadened its scope of services and tournaments and scholarships to include young women as part of its participants. The expansion launched the creation of the Neselina McDonald Foundation Speaks Awareness Program. In this program, the young women are gathered in group sessions during the annual basketball classics to receive health awareness tips on cervical and breast cancer. The health awareness workshops are instructed by Khadija McDonald Carey, Robert's oldest daughter, who holds a master's in health administration, and she's assisted by her sisters, Janine McDonald and Bianca McDonald, an LPN. Robert is happily married to his wife, Kimberly Queen McDonald, for 36 years, and he acknowledges her for much of the success that he's experienced in his life. The couple have 3 wonderful children and 9 grandchildren. And Mr. McDonald thanks God for gracing him throughout his life. And Buddha, if you can, I would like to bring up on our screen and bid a warm welcome to Mr. Robert McDonald.
Yes, good evening, good evening. Glad to be here. What an honor. What an honor, tremendous honor.
It's a pleasure to have you and to have someone that instead of talking has action and speaks. It's such a refreshing thing to have in this crazy world that we've been living in for 2 years. I want to thank you for that right away.
Oh man, well I want to thank you for the opportunity. You could have thought about anybody else and you gave me a call. We haven't spoken in a while, even though we stay in touch from a distance. So I find it quite an honor that you would call me and ask me to come share. My granddaughter, who was just helping me when she was a baby, she would always say, sharing is caring. So I'm glad to be here to share.
Well, I'm happy to have you, and you're really an example for the world. So let's get on with the show, because I think this is something that when we view this show, I want the viewers to take a look at. We're not worried about political parties. We're worried about communities. So what I wanted to ask you, because I'm sure they're going to want to know, tell us about your inspiration that occurred during your youth. What happened during your youth years?
Well, to be honest with you, it seemed like when I look back that delayed response to what happened previously. What I mean by that is, like, you know how you sow a seed and it takes time to grow. It was one of those kind of things. It was quite troubling. My mom worked very, very hard. She had us in church. I had learned in recent years, and put a Bible specifically in my hand and would have me read the Bible to her and to the family and have me pray at the dinner tables, and not knowing I'd go on to have a very tumultuous time in my teen years and my early adulthood. But the seeds were there, and the trials of life and the absenteeism of my father, all of those later on would be used to fuel my passion and my energy towards making a difference.
Yeah, it's beautiful, because so many times we hear about something happening which wasn't really productive, which was negative, but then that individual doesn't decide to take that as a motivation. It's amazing that you took all that happened and you really assimilated it, looked at it, and you realized, instead of being the effect of it, what you were going to do, which leads me to your next question that I wanted to ask you is, because you could have chosen really anything, but what motivated you to help youth as your life's mission for the community?
Well, that's a good question. And I think you have to go back again. You know, there's a story about two boys that grew up with an alcoholic father. One of them chose to be like his dad and became an alcoholic father, but the other one chose not to be like him, and he became successful. Well, my mom and my dad offered me that in their lifestyles as well. And as I grew up and as I grew up, having a man show me what a man should do with his wife and with his family, I had to learn that another way. But it's almost like I woke up out of a deep sleep and I said, no, my family deserves better. And so I got myself together. And here it is now. I'm also helping with my grandkids. So it was a choice. But it was a choice made on what I saw my mom have to go through that she didn't deserve to go through. And I had decided that, you know what? I got to break that curse, and I got to make sure that my son and my daughter see something different as the person at the top position of the household, which is the father and the husband. And so, yeah, it was my children and my wife that motivated me, but the seeds were sown that had to develop.
That's
and
beautiful.
It was through the adversity that those seeds were grown.
I've seen you at your basketball tournament, and I've seen the sincerity that comes out of you, you know, and it's really amazing, which is, you asked me why I chose you for the show. And the reason is because the caring that realistically comes out of you. You're not looking at this because you're trying to make some kind of commercial interest. You're not trying to make this to promote yourself. And I've seen that at the basketball games and tournaments where we've worked together with the Drug Education, Drug-Free World, and the Neselina McDonald Foundation. And what I was curious, because I've seen the people there are really happy with their families watching the games, coming from all over the U.S. What kind of comments do you get from those parents who attend your games?
Oh man, it's just everything. Kind of, I mean, a lot of great comments, man. I mean, if you were, you know, before the COVID, and I sent you the video, we were awarding some of the kids that grew up in the program, and I can't speak for them, but if you would have heard their testimonies, it would have brought joy to your heart. And so, yes, we just celebrated our 25th year, and we used two sites. We used the Sty Dome, and we used the Robert Mcdonald Park in East New York. Hugely successful again, and as you know, we focused on the family, and the families came out, and it was an awesome event, man. I mean, it has given me life. It really has given me life, and so yeah. But the comments are still coming in very warm, very welcoming, and the support is. I mean, I put the tournament together in less than 30 days. Wow. So that kind of shows you what kind of response we're able to garner when I pick up the phone, and that's just due to the love and the care that we exhibit when we're doing tournaments or not. We are in the communities with the people, loving on them, caring on them, talking to them one-on-one or in group sessions, whatever it is, man. It's a love fest, man. It's truly I am my brother's keeper. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. You know, I'm going to put you on the spot with a little bit of surprise here, but it just came to me as you were talking, and it's funny that God works in funny ways because I didn't really even think about this till now. But January 26th, which is a Wednesday, and probably in Orlando, Florida, and you met the former Globetrotter Robert Hunter, who also does Drug-Free World, we're putting together a basketball day for, you know, the youth, for the community, and to really just let people know about drug education and how they can protect their kids from this drug crisis. So you know what? I'm going to take you up on the Neselina McDonald Foundation, and to see, I'm putting you on the spot, if you can get some teams there for this January 26th in Orlando, and we're going to make a little group, you, me, and Bobby Hunter, putting this together with other people. And, you know, this is, Mr. Hunter's going to have an international mayor's conference, actually, that comes the next day. you're going to have a lot of mayors there from all over the world. So I'm putting you on the spot, Mr. McDonald. But you know what? I'd love to have you there. And let me ease off some of the pressure now and give you the next question. Is what would you tell people today in this crazy environment? What would you say, look, this is what you need to keep in mind if you're going to succeed? What would you let them know?
Wow, that's a good question. What I would let them know, man, is be true to themselves. But first, sometimes you have to find yourself, right? And once you're able to find yourself, I think the greatest thing you can do is acts of kindness. The word kindness is very underrated, but once you exercise it, the experience that comes with it, the reciprocal experience that comes with it is priceless. I don't even think there's a definition from it. And kindness is from God. And so as you learn more about God, our lifestyles should exhibit kindness. And yes, so I would tell anybody to be kind. And how do you be kind? In small ways. Opening the door for someone. Maybe you're driving on the Belt Parkway, you let another car come in. You know, no one sees that, but God sees it. You understand? And so, you know, just random acts of kindness. Maybe buy someone a cup of coffee. You don't know how and what people are going through. And so even a kind word or a pat on the back, man, those things, they lend volumes to situation. They change lives. And in the same time that they're changing lives, they're impacting yours. Your health gets better. Your thought process is so much better. It's miraculous that the things that we look for in the world that God created that we're not using to benefit humanity. We're after the things and not the people. And that's where we have our biggest problem. So I think if a person finds out how to do and realize that you've been created to do good. If you're created to do good, start with being kind. And I think the add-ons will be beneficial. And you'll start to grow in that.
You know, that's an interesting concept that I can agree with, because it's kind of like the things and the perks that you get along the way, they're good. Obviously, it's good to have a nice cell phone or a nice jacket, but those things really mean even more, because when you look at them, if you know you help other people, there's more value in that jacket. There's more value in that cell phone, because it contains love, it contains respect, it contains honor. So you know what? I totally agree with you. And I think that's one thing that, you know, having you on the show can bring out tonight to all the audience is that, you know, why don't we, like you said, let's actually take a look at using all these abilities that we have, the love, the caring, the respect, and give that to other human beings, and maybe put a little less attention on the money. That's pretty much what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. I think if you prioritize God, then all of those other things will be added. That's what I spoke about yesterday. You understand? So you prioritize God, you're prioritizing love. You prioritize love. Everything else in your life, yes, money and nice things are all good, but they have their place. They're not the source. They come and they go. God is our source. And that's what we talked about yesterday. And he is recession proof. And the thing, when you start to extend love, it comes back to you. And the way it comes back to you, I can't explain it to you the way you could explain it if you felt it and experienced it for yourself. So we try to share that because you want people to experience that. There's no defining that, because it's an internal thing. And once you feel that thing internally, it empowers you. It is given me back my youth, because I have only one thing in mind, and that is honoring God by serving others. And you do that through love. That's the key. And that's the key.
You know what? It really makes so much sense. And I think if our viewers take a look at what you're saying, and they take a moment now during the show, and maybe think back to a time where you did something not for yourself, but you gave to someone else. Or maybe there was an older person on the street that you felt bad about, so you helped them across the street, you know? or somebody on the, that you just, you want to help them and you just did it without anybody saying you had to, or no obligation. Makes a lot of sense, Mr. McDonald. Let me ask you a question, because I see a lot of your kids ended up playing professional basketball. Tell us a few stories about that.
Well, it's funny. I spoke with Chris Taft yesterday. Chris Taft was a big-time basketball player that went to Pittsburgh University and was drafted to the Golden State Warriors. And the reason why I spoke to him, because one of the events that we do up in Albany, and I was up there visiting this weekend, the tournament was so hugely successful that they wanted to revisit it. And so what they want to do is they want to set up a wall of fame, and they wanted to put his picture and the 4 other NBA players that I brought up to the event for the years that I brought them up there. And so, yeah, so with that situation, it's the same thing. It started out in love. I would take these kids on trips. I would pick them up, and I would take them to the various colleges of the kids that I previously knew. And that's what it was. It's just relationship building. Nothing deep. Just me being there where maybe somebody else isn't. Not judging anyone, but kids need an outlet. And sometimes we as coaches and mentors and some business people, we become their big brother or their father. And so it's important that when we have these kids, we treat them just like they're our own blood relatives. And a lot of times that is what has happened. And this is why I'm in relations with some of these guys.
Makes a lot of sense. And that's a really, I think, an important point you're bringing out that I think our viewers have to pay a little attention to, is that, when you're in that position, you become like the altar father, the altar mother, the uncle, the aunt. You don't have to be related. You're just in that position. I know that I had, in my own profession, in my dental training, in the university that I went to here on Long Island to get my dental degree, there was a professor that cared so much about the students that one day, out of all the students in the clinic, 3/4 of them chose him to supervise their cases, the patients that they were treating. And, they all loved him. I don't think he'd mind if I say his name, and I want to honor him. His name was Dr. Joseph Papa. And, to this day, I love the guy. And, the point that you're making is so true. To me, I guess he was going to be like a big brother. He wasn't a father because he was too young still, but you're right. To me, he was a big brother. And I remember a time where I thought maybe I should have done better, and he validated me. So, Mr. McDonald, what you're saying is so true. What other things like that do you want to share with the viewers? Because I think that's what's missing in our world today, are the things that you're bringing out. So go ahead, and is there something else you'd like to share on that aspect?
Well, it all comes back to the foundational truth of the thing called love. I was talking yesterday about how it's so ironic that when I go and I travel, everywhere I travel, there's an abundance of storage places. And I was using the example of why is that? And what it is people are so after things that they've overran their house, and we've become hoarders. So the business of storage now serves a good purpose to make money if you're in the storage business, because you can't have no more room for things. And what it is we're working hard for things that we'll never really use, as opposed to after the thing called love, that there's more than enough storage room in one's heart that you're able to emit and give to others. And see, so what you have is a world that are after things and not after the thing called love. And see, so while you're after things, what you're doing is you never captivate anything. You never really come to a place of fulfillment and satisfaction. That's why you have these places, because what do? You got to buy more things. When the high wears off, you got to buy more things. You're never satisfied. Love is the only thing that can quench the thirst of an empty heart. And how do you do that? You exercise your lifestyle as one that gives, one that shares, one that cares, or whether you're not seen. God says that what you do in secret, he will reward you openly. That's the key to loving. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. Well, if you understand the foundational principle of love, everything else in life that we need will be added. And that all comes down to love. That's the foundation.
Well, you know what? That makes a whole lot of sense. Because if you look at what's happened in the last 2 years, what have we been missing? We've been missing personal contact with all this isolation that's happening. We've been, kind of like very fearful, staying away from each other. And it's interesting. I think they should do a scientific study because they've seen, unfortunately, that people have gotten this infection. Some have died, but they were vaccinated. And so if what you're saying, which I believe is true, it would be interesting to do a different kind of study. That study would be what would happen if the community was less stressful, if the community was more coordinated, if we were helping each other, if the hospital was more in tune with the people, not as a patient, but as a person. If the people were more in touch with the police, and the police were more in touch with the people, and that the mayor of the town and the city of New York, the Honorable Eric Adams, who's a real people guy, if he came out with the people. It'd be interesting to see, using what you just said about God and really all our religions all over the world, what would happen. So I have 30 seconds. I want to give you, what do you want to say in a concluding statement? We've got 30 seconds.
In a concluding statement, I think the word charity and love are synonymous with one another. I think charity begins at home. In order to build a strong neighborhood, you have to work on your home. And how do you work on your home? You take introspection of yourself. You work on yourself so that you can build up your family. As you build up your family and you take care of that as a priority, you should start to share in your community. And as you share in your community, you start to build a nation. And as you build a nation, then you build a world. But it all is predicated on the foundation called love. Starts with you, starts with me.
Well, I got to say to that, Mr. Robert Mcdonald, founder of the Neselina McDonald Memorial Foundation, something probably that she would say, Amen. And my mother or my father would have said in Jewish, Amen. So for all you watching out there in television land, let's take Mr. McDonald's example and let's exude some love and see what happens tomorrow and see if you don't feel better and look a lot younger. You're looking good, man. Looking good like Mr. McDonald. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Dr. Fialkov. Let's stay in touch and let's get this work done.
January 26th, my friend.
We need to talk about that.
We're going to.
Good.
Have a good night, people.
God.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet